everyone, how's it going? Juan Dhas here, and welcome back to another YouTube lesson. It's been a little while. I know I took a brief break. I was trying to get this video done this past weekend, but after doing videos consistently for the past 2 years or so, yeah, 2 years, 2 videos a week, give or take a week or so here, I think I needed a brief and short break just to kind of recoup and get back into it. But in this week's lesson, I wanted to talk about using your creativity, and specifically using your creativity with lines that you've lifted from other musicians, or lines you've transcribed, things like that. Because I think one thing that comes as a frequent roadblock of sorts for some musicians who are trying to learn new information is that they can't seem to get away from the original idea. And this was actually a topic that was inspired by a student of mine who brought in this idea we're going to run through today, which is kind of a Coltrane 1-2-3-5 but moved in tritones kind of thing. I don't think it was lifted exactly from Coltrane, but 1-2-3-5s are synonymous with Train. And I want to show you strategies for how to take these ideas that you find and that you lift so that you can slowly start turning them into something your own, that is your own, and that you're not coming up with, or rather you're not spitting out ideas verbatim as you copy them from other people. So with all of that out of the way, let's dive right in. Now, with regards to starting to figure out how you find new ideas, well, the first thing, you have to kind of know what you're working with. It's not enough just to hear this pattern, just to go it's not just enough to be able to play it. You've got to know what it actually is so that you can kind of see if there are any things that you can tweak right off the bat. So the first thing I would do is do an analysis, and kind of mentioned it earlier. It was 1-2-3-5s moving in tritones, right? Using the tritone as the launch point for the next idea. So I've got a 1-2-3-5 in A, and then a 1-2-3-5 in E flat, right? Right? And I think if I remember from the line my student brought in, it was just kind of one octave. Actually, it was played up here, or just going into the second octave. And this is important. So there are a couple of things you can do. Actually, I would say maybe 3 things you can do. One, you can really it boils down to 2, actually, now that I think of it. One is adding or taking things away. So you can either add something to the beginning of the line or the end of the line, or contract the line if it's a longer line. So just diving into step 1 right away. If we take this idea, right? So let's say the original idea was just an octave. I can already tweak it by extending it and extending the pattern beyond what it usually was. Right? So that all I did there was move into the second octave and then complete it with a third octave. Right? The other thing you can do to add to lines is add little bits and pieces in front or at the end, because one thing that really screams I stole this line is if you just kind of use it and then leave it. To kind of hide this a little more, you can add something at the beginning that disguises the intro. And this is the thing with 1-2-3-5 patterns and this kind of line, especially these kind of lines that tend to present themselves as cliches. They tend to be very obvious. When you hear them, there's a very recognizable pattern that many musicians have used at one point or the other. So the easiest way to start using them is to kind of hide them. So for example, maybe I can use an enclosure to start off the line. So that already sounds a little bit more hidden. And it starts kind of pushing, my fingerings and how I do that. I can start with a scale phrase that actually also pushes the rhythmic accent, which is kind of cool. I can do something as simple as just descending the triad that the original idea is based off of. It's an A major 1, 2, 3, 5. So I can do and so on and move it through. What if I started adding stuff at the end of the line? And, you know, this is the thing with this stuff especially, it's easy to learn. It's easy to learn the actual line and continue the phrase, but how do you end it? And this is where having maybe a couple of endings can actually help you out. So, that's a nice way to end back in A, to kind of bring it back home, so to speak. Right, A major triad at the end. I'd put an enclosure on the 5 of the A, and then finished off with an A major triad. Simple enough, but it already hides the line a little bit more. And if you have very strong resolutions, the listener almost, I'm not saying this is an absolute truth, but almost kind of forgets that, they almost kind of forget the line you just played, so it's almost treated as inconsequential, even though it was a build-up. But where else can we go? Ascending major triad instead of descending. You know, I can take it anywhere I would really want to. Your creativity is really your only limit, and we all know the limits on creativity. There aren't a whole lot. There's another kind of bebop style enclosure. Or you can do so you see, I mean, the possibilities are infinite. Maybe I want to extend the line even more. Maybe I can connect it to another idea that I'm familiar with. So that kind of drifted into some pentatonic territory, going into natural minor. Right? And really, so now that line doesn't feel like this one singular idea. Right? It just feels like part of a greater whole, and you can extend it, or if it's a longer line already, you can fragment it. So that's the first point, adding or taking away. It's a very simple concept, and one that's easy to apply. The other thing you can start doing is using permutations. So what is a permutation, for those who are curious? Permutations are just where you look at all the different possibilities of the notes you have. And this is easier when you have a pattern-based structure, kind of like this. 1, 2, 3, 5s are a great little thing you can mess around with regards to permutations, simply because you're already dealing with a system. You already know the interval set. So you can move the intervals around and see what you can come up with. One of my favorite permutations of a 1, 2, 3, 5 is 1, 5, 2, 3, because it creates this more intervallic sound. So you can try, and that creates this almost, it's not as clear as to what the sound is, but you're still messing with a very core idea. And that has a clear ending to it. What other permutations can you come up with? Maybe you can do 3, 2, 1, 5. Let's see how that sounds. That's kind of cool because then you get that minor third interval between the 5 and the 3 of the next pattern. So you've got 3, 2, 1, 5, and then you've got 3 where you can play it up here. If you play it the way I'm doing it, you get the 3 on the same string, which creates a little bit more of a fluid sound. Right? Pretty cool. What if I did 1, 5, 3, 2? Oop, went Lydian there, but you know. What else can we come up with? Maybe start on the 2. 2, 3, 1, 5. Let's see how that sounds. And you got a nice slide to prep you up there. What about 3, 5, 1, 3? Sorry, 3, 5, 1, 2. So you see, this is already inspiring some new ideas. And as I said earlier, you can fragment, you can combine the two. You know, I can take this 5, 3, 1, 2. Sorry, 3, 5, 1, 2. 3, 5, 1, 2, and maybe I don't have to play this whole line, but maybe that's a nice little piece of language that I took from a simple idea. And just because I tweaked it a little bit, now it sounds a little more personal, or it's an interval set or sound that I particularly like. So, in closing, what do I want to close out with? I want to close out with this. We are all the sum of our influences. When we play, you know, we're not really especially, I wouldn't say that it's easy to come up with an original sound. It's not. But what makes you original is all the influences you've ever heard in your life, filtered through this internal lens that are your preferences. For example, I might like so-and-so's melodic sense, I might like so-and-so's rhythmic concept, I might like the way a certain musician plays with different harmonies. And another person can look at those exact same musicians and completely swap around the things they like out of those musicians. Maybe for that person who I really enjoy their melodic sense, they like that person's rhythm. And that starts making up your own individual concept. The moral of the story being, you will have to copy people to eventually learn how to speak the language. You will have to transcribe, you will have to learn other people's phrases in order to develop your own sound, because you need a foundation. Much like learning how to speak a language, you can't learn the language entirely on your own. You need the help of other people to communicate it to you. So don't be afraid of transcribing, but when you're transcribing, don't let the idea just sit. Please do your best to try find a new thing, try find a new idea. How can I connect this phrase? How can I start this phrase off differently? Can I play this phrase in a different key? For example, if it's a major 1, 2, 3, 5, why not put it as minor, you know? What if I change the interval set? What if I did a permutation? Ask yourself these questions once the line is further ingrained. You need to do the groundwork first. And once the line is ingrained, start tweaking it. And I can guarantee you'll surprise yourself. So, on that note, I'm going to jump onto Patreon, maybe do a little bit of a deeper dive into a couple of concepts for this thing, and I will see you in the next video. Take care, guys.